From the Middle is a proud founding member of Odd Pods Media. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 234 of From the Middle. We are three middle-class guys living in the middle of America, middle chapters of our lives with a point of view that is somewhere in the middle. We are a culture and comedy interview style podcast, and we like to talk about all kinds of crazy things. If you're joining us, and last week was your first episode, I do want to warn you that hi, how are you? Welcome, but also that's not who we are. Much of the time, a lot of the time, we talk about things like Taco Bell and how disgusting must a Taco Bell situation be for you to not eat it. And so far, Kory has not found that answer. The crew won a soccer game that we're super excited about. Will Ferrel was in Columbus, and we were, kind of excited about that. We're talking about kids sports. We're talking about streaming, and also on the back half, Kory and Dillon saw one of our favorite podcaster comedians. Find out who we're talking about there. Roll the music.
Oh, for the love. Sorry, just clearing my Mountain Dew hole.
I got my phone hole cleaned today.
That's where you keep it? You're so cerebral and you're so developed and evolved.
From the Middle after dark over here.
I need you guys' thoughts on how you would handle a situation I was presented with a few weekends ago.
Run.
I don't think you would run from the situation. You might.
Oh, okay.
You might run to it. I'll test your responses.
Okay.
Saturday morning, we sleep in a little bit, wake up, start watching College Game Day. One of the girls takes one of the two dogs out front to do its business, brings it back in and says, "Whose food is on the porch?" To which we reply, "What?" And she said, "There's a bag of Taco Bell on the porch." It's around 10 a.m. And so we go outside, grab the very large bag of Taco Bell from the porch, and it says it was delivered at 1:37 a.m. earlier that morning.
Wow.
And the order was for a Tim P. There's no Tim P in our house. Now, I thought, before I saw the name, Dylan and I had been joking about Taco Bell a few days before this, and I'm like, maybe he DoorDashed some food to my house. So that food was sitting out there in the near freezing temperatures all night.
Right.
Would you or would you not eat it if it had the freshness stickers slapped across the top, so you knew that it was not unbroken in any way, and it was basically in a refrigerator?
That is a seasonal question, isn't it? I say, go ahead, Dylan. No, you're the
what are the odds? That's true. What are the odds that any living creatures could have slobbered in and around the bag with the quote freshness stickers still having been on it? Did it look mangled in any way?
It looked pristine. Like if you took a brand new brown paper Taco Bell bag, folded the top and placed 3 stickers across the top. It was crisp. The edges were crisp. It had not been slobbered on.
Mice still, though.
Little things could have pooped in it. Sure. But no human hands, at least, got into the bag.
There were
no raccoons or
no
raccoons.
nibble marks. No
I mean, the thing that you have on your side in the story is that it was probably like 20 degrees outside or 30 degrees overnight. So even colder than a refrigerator, most likely. I think that works in your favor. And I don't know what that says about Taco Bell that even wild animals wouldn't approach the bag.
The question is, would you eat it?
I'd probably see what items were in there.
Yeah.
And if it was things that here's a perfect example. You know what I'm not even gonna mess around with? A nachos Bel Grande. Not even gonna.
Really?
That's just a sog fest after.
Oh, good point.
Hours.
Yep.
But you know what would be much more approachable? A quesadilla is easy to heat up. Most of the burritos that don't have crunchy bits, like they're nacho strips inside, bean burritos, burrito supreme, stuff like that. Things with minimal lettuce. Not that the lettuce wouldn't be crispy, but some of that's really easy to reheat. And actually, some people will cut like old Taco Bell burritos in half and then air fry them just really fast, just to warm them up. So I think, yeah, depending on the item, I think I'm digging in the bag, and I just got a free breakfast.
Yeah, live Moss, my friend.
Yeah,
that's what I say. It's I've had leftover Taco Bell many times. We know that when we record in person, I allow a video to render while I head to the local Taco Bell and come back, and I typically get an extra cheesy bean and rice burrito to have for breakfast the next morning. I like those things for breakfast. Cold, even. I like them for breakfast.
Ooh, that little bit of spice when it's cold, but you got the creamy jalapeno.
It brings out the spice, I feel like, when it's cold. Like everything else is muted except for the spicy cheese sauce, whatever it is.
Yeah. I will also frequently order like 2 extra bean burritos for the next day for lunch. And in the morning, after I've had coffee, I'll set them out on the counter and just let them get to room temperature on their own. And then I'll eat them.
Cool. Yeah.
I almost always get Taco Bell on the way to record too. I think that's a couple yeses. I think that's a couple.
It is.
Pretty firm yeses that we would.
And I will say this: last week, I did not bring it into the extra burrito into the office to put it in my fridge. I just left it in the car because of the season that we're in right now. So, man, if it looks untampered, ding ding.
Well, let me tell you the little game that we played with ourselves. It was like, well, we gotta bring it in. It can't just sit out there. Put it on the counter. Do a little research on the tag. It's for a Tim P. Looks like it was delivered at 1:37. That's walk away from it, come back. So I wonder what's in here. I mean, what was the order? It was like, I think I knew from jump that I was going to eat it, but I was like, I can't.
You had to play a game with yourself. Was it the Seinfeld episode? The donut was sitting on the top of the trash, like on a paper towel, and it's like, I get it.
Well, whoever Tim P is customizes his items at Taco Bell more than I've ever seen. He added 2 extra proteins to whatever protein he ordered for that item. So if he ordered a chicken chalupa, he added beef and steak. And the dude I like his style, man.
That sounds it certainly sounds like a drunk order to me. And B, we already assume that there's no moral dilemma here because one of 2 things happened. He either contacted DoorDash or Uber Eats or whoever and said, "Hey, I didn't get my food." And they're like, "Oh, dang, we'll get that to you, or we'll give you a refund." And so it's already been dealt with. Or he ordered it at, 1:00 and then passed out at 1:15 and forgot that he ever even ordered anything.
Oh, man. Anyway, well, hey, guys, it's good to see you.
Hey, that was fun.
Middlers, let us know if a random package from one of your favorite fast food joints shows up on your porch. to be discovered later that morning. Are you partaking? Yes or no? Inquiring minds. What's going on with you guys?
Oh, rocking and a rolling, man. The season is full swing.
Amen.
We've got all the Christmas party stuff and the who's and what's and the whatnots. The Columbus Crew. Did you guys watch the championship game
Did
this
not.
past weekend? I did. Dillon did. The Columbus Crew are MLS Cup champions for the third time.
Third
Not
time
in a
ever.
row, but third
Second time
ever.
in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I almost insisted on watching it because we went to a game this season, and I told Bree, how cool would it be if the first game we went to in the new lower.com field was the same season that they ended up winning in the MLS Cup? So we got to turn it on. And fun facts that I learned while watching the broadcast: we have never, not only have we never beat LA before, we've never even scored a goal against LA before this MLS Cup, and we did both in the same night.
Yeah, LA were defending champions, and
Yeah.
Columbus took the long road, the hard road to get there. They beat the two teams who were ahead of them in points, to get to the final. And then we're technically favored a little bit against LA, but nonetheless made it happen. And what was an exciting game if you're a Crew fan, a very frustrating game if you're an LA Galaxy fan, because it was very slow if you're a Galaxy fan, but it was very like, oh, they're gonna score now. Nope, not yet. Oh, they're gonna score now. Oh, nope, not yet. For the Crew, and it was a fun game. It was good. Congratulations, Crew.
Congratulations, Crew, making us proud. I did not watch the game. I saw the news shortly after the game, was super excited. Did you hear that Will Ferrell crashed a bar and rallied LAFC fans before the game?
No.
Yeah, he was in Columbus, and I can't remember which bar he was at, but he's one of the part owners of LA. So he had a little extra invested into trying to rally the troops, which I think is funny because he went to visit Wrexham with Ryan Reynolds, probably because they had worked on the movie Spirited a year or two ago for Apple TV Plus.
Right.
And I think it was a little bit of an ownership exchange. They're talking about little tips and tricks of Ryan Reynolds part owning Wrexham and Will Ferrell part owning LA. So it was cool. I saw the video of him in the bar, like kind of up on a seat or up on the bar trying to get everyone to chant along. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it was Brewworks in the Arena District, and people said he went full Frank the Tank. Little nod to his old school days. But yeah, check out videos of Will Ferrell crashing a bar in Columbus. Anyway, pretty cool. So
How long? I was speculating, not that it matters. How long do you think he was in town? Do you think, because that game was 4:00 Saturday, do you think he just like flew in that morning, or do you think he was around for like a day or two before and after?
I think he was there for that game in Jeddah.
You think no extra time in Columbus?
Why?
Yeah.
Hollywood types probably don't view Columbus as a let's stay for a few days and see what's going around type of a town.
Not that I expected him to sightsee, but just, like maybe he was working out of a hotel for a day or two.
Well, so I read a thing today about, I don't know what she had going on, but apparently Taylor Swift recently had her first interview of the kind in years. And she opened up about a dark time that she was going through and talked about some of her deeper friendships that she has, Selena Gomez being one of them. And there was a quote from Selena Gomez who was like, I don't think people quite understand, and rightfully so, because we don't air it out, how much we mean to each other and what she's done for me. Like, and this is what gets me, is what makes you stop and go, huh? Is that like, there's been times where like I was having a bad day and she flew out to see me. I'm like, that's something that this half doesn't do, right?
That's true.
we don't like, someone's having a bad day, and instead of like sending a text or a phone call, like you just fly out and give them a hug and turn around and leave. So that's the kind of world that we're talking about. I mean, I don't see why Will Ferrell would have to work from a hotel for a couple of days.
Yeah, that's like Sebastian Maniscalco money now. Like that's not from the middle money. That's
Yeah.
not our tip. That's not our tip jar money.
We're
Is what
talking
you're-
like, you go out to dinner at one of the like local Giordano's pizzas here in Columbus, and you're like, I wonder if this is like the real stuff. And you're like, I don't know. Let's go find out. Fly to Chicago right quick.
what's our equivalent of that, of flying out to see a friend on a bad day? Is that like, let me get your dinner, we'll get extra cheese on the pizza? Do you think that's the equivalent here? Like, let's spring for triple meat and extra cheese.
I think paying for the round, paying for dinner.
Couple rounds, maybe. That's above and beyond.
Hey man,
Yeah.
I know you're really going through a tough time. I'm gonna go ahead and spring for the Taco Bell bill tonight. And why don't you order some extra protein?
You know what? I know you're really feeling down. I'll just pay to DoorDash it. How about that?
What's your address again? Never mind. I think I remember.
Well, speaking of sports, I had kind of a unique opportunity with my son who turned 9 yesterday. So
All right.
happy birthday, Case, man. And it was pretty cool. So the Youth Basketball League has a connection to something called Court of Dreams, which is basically just that youth basketball youths get to go and play on the Ohio State men's basketball practice court before home games. So it's probably one of those like, hey, you'll sit clear up in the nosebleeds, but we'll sit all your teams. It's not just one team. It's like all the teams in different age groups will sit you all together. And hey, for an hour before the game starts, y'all can shoot around on the court. So Sherry is by far the bigger basketball fan, definitely the bigger college basketball fan, and would have probably rather gone to this thing with our son. But she's like, it's probably going to be a lot of dads, so you should probably go. So I took Case down to Value City Arena, also known as The Shot. And we were earlier than we were supposed to be for the early shoot around thing, which meant that when we went through the metal detector, the girl goes, hey, are you here from the Court of Dreams thing? Some university contact person. And we're like, yeah. So they let us in. There was one family of 4 shooting on one end and just Case and I on the whole other half. It was soon to be filled with hundreds of kids. But it was so fun. And then we got to watch the game. They played Miami of Ohio, so not super stiff competition. But another cool thing that happened, perhaps a future guest. So here we are. We're literally up by the banners, like the championship year banners, and clear up in the rafters of the ceiling. And before the game, and this guy comes out to play the national anthem, plays the saxophone, and kills it. Like Mike Williams on sax. I'm going to tag him. I immediately started following him. It was so good. And then at halftime, he comes out. The dancers are doing dances to him playing Christmas songs on the sax. That was awesome. So I just messaged him on Instagram. I was like, dude, you killed that. That was awesome. If you ever want a podcast to come and be a part of, he's like, I would love to after the holiday concert series is over. So
yeah,
shout out to Mike Williams on sax. That was really fun. He's got Northwest Ohio ties. So we connected over that, but just super impressed with his skill. And that was kind of fun. So pretty unique experience and made a cool connection out of it.
Oh, that gets me excited, man. I want to talk to him. We need to have him and Tim Campolo
There you go.
at the same time.
There you go.
Wonder if Tim would come on, and I don't have one anymore. I would go buy a saxophone just for that. If that episode ever happens, I'll go buy one, and then we'll try to figure out a way to do a triplet.
There you go, man.
Love it.
Let's do it.
I'll be front row of the audience.
Yeah. I'll take my shirt off and everything.
Gyrate those hips, baby. For those of you that don't know what we're talking about, if you've ever seen the film, I'm blanking on the name right now.
Lost Boys, one
of Kendall's favorites, cult classic. Back when Cameo was in its early heyday, Dylan and I sprung for Kendall to receive a special message from the greased up man depicted in that film, played by Tim Capello. So yeah, I think we have that on our YouTube somewhere. You can go see.
We sure do.
Tim Capello's cameo to our boy Kendall. That was fun times.
Yeah, no, that's fun, man. That's fun. You and Case and awesome basketball courts.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a pretty unique experience.
Yeah, I wonder. Like, I've thought about getting my kids into hockey. It was one of those things that, like, before being a dad, said, you know what, that'd be awesome. I want my kids to be hockey players. And then when they're like 2 years old, and then you have friends who have their kids in hockey, and they're like, why aren't they on skates yet? I thought you were going to have them. They're like, well, they're two. They're like, yeah, well, I know they're two. This is when
that's
you
when
start.
you do it.
And this is how much it's going to cost you. And then you're like, yeah, okay, hockey's not going to be our thing. Because I love it. Hockey is my favorite sport. But around here, there's only a handful of hockey rinks. And so, like, the practice rink at Nationwide Arena is one of them that kids use for practices and games. And then we have various other rinks throughout the city. But the fact that, like, that's one of them at Nationwide Arena, like, I've always thought is very cool. Like, I went to a friend's kid's hockey game there one time, and it was like, man, I wonder if they realize how cool it is that they get to play here. Like, kids in other sports don't get to do this.
Yeah. So there's that. There's the ice time, and then there's the equipment for the sport, and then there's in order for us to go play other teams, the travel required to find other rinks to go play games on.
Yeah,
it's not. Let's just say the people around here. This is a very from the middle comment. The people around here whose kids play hockey are like lawyers, business owners, successful entrepreneurs, doctors. This isn't like your average family has multiple kids or even one kid playing hockey.
Exactly.
They're not parents who freelance as podcasters, is what you're saying?
That's right.
No. Yeah, it's not like, in Michigan, it's the same kind of story in Michigan, but, like, obviously the options are a little bit more prevalent. Communities will typically have outdoor seasonal rinks that get used for such things, which isn't something that you really see here at all. But yeah, hockey is an expensive sport to get into, and ice time is the reason why.
Yep.
So, even if you want to play in a league, like, chances are your high school doesn't. If you're lucky enough to be in a school system that has its own hockey team, that's great. But that only works once you get to high school. Before then, you got to play on these school clubs, which is different from, like, club baseball, because there's no other option for the hockey players. And so you've got to pay a lot of money just to be part of the club, because the club is spending a lot of money on these rinks. And ridiculous. Taekwondo, that's where it's at. That's what we do. That's what we do. Hey, my kids just passed their testing, so I've got 2 red belts and a purple belt now.
Nice.
In the house. And my wife and I are greens.
Working their way through the belts.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
It was exciting for the boys. Yeah.
Is there a skill, like, that's something I always saw from afar but never participated in? Is there like what does one have to do to progress through the belts? Is it time based? Is it move based? Oh, you've learned this move, or you're broken this many boards. Now you get to do.
Right. So there's several things. So um, they set a concrete brick in front of you, and they pour gasoline on top of it and light it on
Right.
fire.
Right.
Right.
You're standing over the pool of sharks, right?
And then people start chanting
Right.
in Korean.
Right.
No. um,
That
so
part
no,
I'm familiar with. Right. That's a given.
yeah. So there's you've got to go through. They have a stripe system through training, and so if you can do you hit benchmarks, um, and then you get to so many, and they say, okay, we think you're ready to test. And so they have this big testing day. They have one like every couple months, and it's very formal. You go in, you have a form that you've been working on for your belt level. And so that's like when you're seeing the Karate Kid and he's like on the cliff, like doing these weird things just by himself with the sunset off in the background. And that's essentially his form. And that's a memorized series of moves that you have to get technically correct and you have to remember all of it. And those kinds of things. So your form for your belt level, you have to perform that in front of a table of judges. And then and you don't get any immediate feedback, by the way, on any of this, which is kind of frustrating, but apparently that's a tradition thing. And you're not allowed to ask if you passed. You just failure to receive a call or email that night that you didn't pass is how you know that you passed.
Wow.
So that's the first thing is your form. And then they have you go through 2-minute sparring rounds and 3 rounds with 3 different opponents. And so you put on your gear and you spar. And they're not counting hits or anything like that. They want to make sure that you're hitting and kicking and making contact. But they're looking at form and technique and effort and knowledge. If you do nothing but a bunch of side kicks, they're probably not going to pass you. You've got to do the spin kicks and the fancier things as well, and make sure everything is legal. So they do that, and judges are watching you spar, and then once you get to a certain belt level, which now the boys are past that belt level, there is a board breaking time as well. And there's an assigned hand technique and a foot technique to break boards, and you have to break the boards. So you can do all of this stuff and do well, miss one of your boards, and that's it. It's done. You know you did not pass. So the boys, both of them, failed to break both of their boards, their previous testing, and so they worked really hard on that. Got them both this time, and then did well on the other parts of testing. So it was like one of those yes, overcome kind of moments for them. It was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was sort of joking about the board breaking. I mean, I knew it was a part of it, but that's awesome. I've always wondered about those. What type of wood are we working with here? The skeptic would always be like, "Oh, they're scored on the back so that they break easier." It's like, what's the?
They're not. It's actually not that hard to break boards. If you can just like the easiest thing to do is a hammer fist. Just put your hand straight up in the air and come straight down as hard as you can. Like, I mean, any one of us would be able to break like an 1.5-inch board right now. Like, literally just go to Lowe's and grab a piece of maple and you'd be able to do that. As surprising as that might sound.
Fascinating.
But the wood gets there's for different age levels, there's different thicknesses. And then for men at certain age levels, so I think for adults, I think for me, it might be 2 boards. So at a certain thickness that you have to get through these different things.
Fascinating. So, and you and Amy are green?
We're green right now, and we're not to the mandatory board breaking situation yet.
I mean, we got to get some of this on video. We got to share this stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Good for them. Congrats, everybody, on your, is it a promotion? Graduation?
Yeah, promotion.
All right.
I think, what do they call it? Level up? Belt change.
Belt change.
Belt change.
Hashtag belt change. And you will level up on the back half of this episode after we hear some words from some of our friends in Odd Pods Media.
We interrupt this program to bring you a news blast.
Michael Jackson's ghost seen at a Yankees game.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch, now with a shrimp in every bite.
Lil Uzi Vert's head diamond has been sold on the dark web.
Stories like this and more can be found at the Ever Trending Story, a podcast where we peruse the news and write a fun fictional story for you.
Find us wherever you download podcasts and follow us on the socials at Ever Trending Pod, and we are proud members of the Odd Pods Media Network.
Well, there is another podcast that we talk about ad nauseum here on the From the Middle podcast, and that is the Pete and Sebastian Show. Dillon mentioned Sebastian Maniscalco earlier, one of the planet's highest paid stand-up comics, and his podcast with his friend and fellow comic Pete Correale. Dillon, tell the people, what did we do this past weekend?
We saw Pete.
Hey!
All right.
We went to see Pete.
Tell a little about it.
You contacted me weeks, if not months ago, and said, hey, Pete is going to be in town doing stand-up. And I said, great. And Apple paid you money, and then kind of forgot about it for a while. And then December rolled around, and Pete Correale is on my calendar. And then we're like, well, let's go get dinner first, and then let's head down to the show. And so we did just that. And we went and had some Greek food, which is delicious. And then we got down to the venue, and we had assigned seats because I kept thinking after several experiences that weren't assigned seats, I kept, not that I wouldn't have been excited for the show, but I'm becoming an old man and standing for long periods of time in line and then standing during performances. So I keep asking Kory, are these assigned seats? And he says yes. And so we get there pretty close to the door's opening. We weren't in line outside very long. We planned it right. And so not a huge venue. And the orchestra section is actually the only place where seats are set up. How many rows? You think 10 rows maybe of seats?
Yeah, 10 to 15 rows. Yeah.
And then what would normally be a second tier of stand-only seat has no seats. And then the upper balcony has no one in it. So it's really just the seats in the orchestra section. And we are in the first row, right down from the mic. I mean, he'd spit on us if he wasn't trying, kind of thing. And because we're there a little bit early, we find our appropriate seats, and then we spread out a little bit. Like once other people get here, we'll move back into our seats because we're not small guys. So as soon as we have to get into our seats, we're going to be like, sucking it in and kind of tightly shoulder to shoulder, probably have to turn to the side a little bit kind of thing to make that work. And almost no one else showed up in the front row. So I had 5 seats to my left that were the first row, all empty. And then a space to my right, and then Kory, and then he had a space to his right, and then a guy. And then a couple more in the first row, like down on the other end. So it's not that all the rows were empty, but for whatever reason, like the front row was mostly empty, which is where we were sitting. So, of course, when Pete wants to do a little crowd work, it's basically me and Kory sitting in the front row.
Ready to go.
It was a lot of fun. It was hilarious. And I'm not saying I wasn't expecting the show to be good. But because I've always been a Sebastian fan, I just necessarily hadn't thought a ton about how funny or not I expected him to be. I already like Pete. He didn't have to win me over. My expectations weren't high because I'm not a huge Pete fan. I'm a Sebastian fan. So I'm just excited to be going, and however much I laugh is however much I laugh. That's kind of how I went into the show. And then he just did a hilarious set. We had a great opener local to Columbus, and he did a hilarious set, and we were laughing the whole time, and he killed it. And I don't know how much crowd work banter he did with me. It was certainly us two the most by far. And then I don't know how much with me. It was a lot, but we were having some.
Yeah.
Did
Well,
you have to give him a vague answer as to where you worked?
No, I wouldn't even have gone into that. That would not have been interesting. Yeah.
No, Dillon. So he did the thing where he uses just a tad bit of crowd work to go into a chunk he has on a given topic. So he started asking Dillon about his religion.
Mm-hmm.
And he used that to go into his own religion
Right.
as a Catholic. And then he asked me about my dogs so he could tell a long story about his dogs. But the first thing he did when we came out, so remember, Dillon said there was a seat between us. So I had my arms up on the seats on either side of me. And the first thing Pete says when he comes out, because the room was a little thin, he's like, I'm not sure what's going on tonight in Columbus, but there's not a lot of people out. It's also the first night of Hanukkah. And then he looks down at me and says, hey, buddy, thanks for like stretching out to make it look like there's more people here. If everybody else could do that, that would be greatly appreciated. So like the whole night, he just kept using me and Dillon as like prompts for his chunks, which was awesome.
Yeah.
He talked a little bit to the guy to the other side of me, but it was mostly, it felt like for a long time, it was just Dillon and I hanging out.
That's great.
Hanging out with Pete. So another funny layer to this was that based on how well the whole giving Bobby and Andrew some artwork, some fan art went, I was like, I already have a drawing that I've done of Pete. I should really print it up and frame it and see if I should take it down to the show. And I asked Dillon, he's like, why not? If you've already got it, like, what's the big deal? So I got an 8x10 print of this caricature I had done. And then I got 2 extras to see if he would sign it for Dillon and I to go down. So we're in line and one of the security guys comes over. He's like, what's that? And Dillon was holding it at the time because I was getting my ID out, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, oh, it's just a caricature. It's a gift for the comic. And he goes, I'm not sure I can let you guys bring that in. And we're like, okay, like whatever you say, we trust you. We went through a whole ordeal. It was like, well, because it's glass, it might break. So we can take it. And maybe if he doesn't come out after the show for a meet and greet, once he's taken his final bow, you can run over to us, grab your frame, and then hurry up and try to take it to him before he leaves the stage. I was like, can you just leave it in his green room? He's like, we don't have access back there. We're not allowed to do that, blah, blah, blah. So it was this whole deal.
That was the big thing, because we're like, we'll hold on to the extra prints to try to get him signed if we can, but at least take the frame back to his dressing room. Well, it's like a third-party security company. So most people would be like, well, why wouldn't the people hosting the event just go set it in his room? They can't. The security people aren't the same as the people who run the club, the comedy club.
So now it's a whole thing, and I've already been more of a problem than I wanted to be. They're asking their managers, they're in their intercom earpiece going, what's that? Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, they're not here yet. And then the one lady I talked to said, like, because this isn't a band and they didn't come early for like a sound check, the comics just roll in 5 minutes before. So we can't even check with their people because they're literally on their way here and they're going to be here like 5 minutes before. So I'm like, I don't want to be a problem. This has already become a big ordeal. I just wanted to give the guy like a picture frame. I get it. It's glass. You guys know your business better than I do. I just thought, what the heck? I might as well. If you have to throw it away at the end of the night, whatever. So Dillon and I are sitting there. We're waiting still for the opener to come out. And one of the more junior security guys goes over, sir, can I talk to you? He pulls me over to talk to the first guy that saw us in line. And he's like, hey, this is Scott. And Scott was a big, huge dude that was going to sit at the edge of the stage. And he's like, give Scott everything. If Pete comes out to do a meet and greet after, he'll give it back to you. If he doesn't, once he's taken his bow, like I said earlier, grab it from Scott. You can run it over to Pete. Then he goes, hey, come here. And I go, yeah. And he goes, he's going to come out. He's going to come out after. I just don't want to say it really loud so that everybody. I was like, oh, cool. So he's going to come out. So in his set, when Pete was talking about how thinly populated the venue was, he goes, people always ask if I'm going to do a meet and greet. Heck, I'll do one right now if you guys want. Because it was very much going to be like an unplugged sort of like, I'm going to try different material because this isn't a packed house and let's just have fun tonight, which really made for a fun evening. So now if you're on the YouTubes, I'm going to share the photo of Pete receiving his caricature. So Dillon and I got to meet him. The only thing that was slightly awkward at the end was nobody formed a line to like greet him. So there was just a big circle of people around him, and whoever had the most courage to go next just like went toward the middle, like back in midget football when you would play.
Yeah.
Well, what we can't call it what we used to call it. But anyway, so it was like Pete was like having to do like a 360, who's coming at me next type thing.
That's awkward.
Yeah, it was awkward, but it was really cool. He couldn't have been nicer. He had picked on Dillon a little bit at one point. So when I said, hey, my name's Kory, this is my brother Dillon, when he panned over to and like clocked Dillon, he just gave him a massive hug because he felt a little guilty for some of the crowd work he had done at Dillon's expense. So Dillon got a big hug from Pete, and it was a really fun night. And he couldn't have been nicer. And it was really fun. So
I hear his face is taller in person. Is that true?
Dude, I mean, Dillon and I have each lost a little bit of weight. We're holding each other accountable to the little weight loss thing that we're doing. But like standing next to Pete, you'd never know it. This guy, he's so trim and he's so long. Like he's
very lanky. Like this looks like two UFC dudes posing with I don't want to say it. Never mind.
UFC. That was nice. That was the nice way to take it.
Well, no, it's what I was about to call Pete. I don't want to.
Yeah. The hug was great. I tried to explain because I think several times he almost made comments about it being kind of quiet, or that maybe he thought he wasn't doing as well. I'm dying, I said, hey, Columbus people are really quiet. We're trying to be polite. It was awesome show. It was very, very funny. But I've heard, it's not the first time I've heard that from professional performers, that like people don't even know if Midwestern people are enjoying a show until the end when they finally get up and clap, because they don't want to disrupt the show by clapping or applauding or throughout the middle of things, or it's not the first time I've heard that kind of commentary. So I always feel like I need to explain, like, sometimes we're extra nice and we're trying to be polite and sit and enjoy the show. So
yeah, and just a real quick shout out too. I'm going to tag him as well in the post for this episode. Simon Fraser was the opener, and if you're in Columbus, or Central Ohio, you've probably seen a clip of his being shared. He's talking about Columbus, and he goes, we have one of the best blah in the land, and we've got this, and we've got this. And he's listing all these things that Columbus has. And we've got the type of airport where when you find out that you're about to board, you can think about potentially calling your Uber. And we've got this, and we've got the short north, and we've got, so it's just this whole long spiel he does on Columbus. I've seen that shared a ton on social media. That's the guy we got to see as the opener. So he's British. He lives here in Columbus now. And he makes a lot of observational jokes about the Midwest and being from the UK. And it was really, really, really a good set. So great job, Simon. Great job, Pete. And of course, I had to give Pete a letter attached to
his. Of course, yes.
And I've invited him on the show. So knock on wood. We'll see if he agrees to ever be a guest.
Yeah, there was a guy sitting in front of me today. We were at the belt changing ceremony, and there's a guy that I've seen on YouTube a handful of times. I've seen his channel, and I'm like, man, you look a lot like this dude. I'm thinking that to myself, so I didn't actually say anything to him. And the more I'm looking at him, the more I'm like, I think like you. I don't know where this guy is from, but you look just like the guy. And the guy was like super charismatic. Like the kind of guy that would like have a YouTube channel. And so
And now
like
you're like, this is the guy.
in my head, I'm thinking, man, I need to try to get in with this guy and then like try to get him on because that'd be interesting. So I'm going to do some stalking on YouTube and try to find out some personal information of this fella. And then maybe in a number of months from now, we'll have him on the show and I'll tell him how I stalked him.
There you go. Hey, I'm not above it. You got to do what you got to do in this trying to get guest game. Speaking of guest, if you haven't had a chance, please go back and listen to our episode 233 with Chris Massey. That was so good, so inspiring, so encouraging. And you want to make sure that you check that one out. Author, speaker, coach, friend of the show. A lot of fun. We could have easily talked for another hour and a half.
We could have. And I feel like it was a deep discussion. It was encouraging in a lot of ways. Like we used that term all day last week. And I could probably count on one hand, maybe two. I might need two. The number of episodes that we've done that I consider important. And that was certainly on the short list of episodes that I felt like were important episodes to do and have out there.
And according to the traction it's getting, at least on the platforms I'm looking on, it's doing at least 6 times better than our average episodes. So
makes sense.
So people vote with their views and their clicks, and I think they would agree with you. It felt like an important one, so go check it out in case you missed it.
Yeah. That does make sense. Some of the metrics, like on some of these things, they don't count unless a person has partaken in the media for X number of minutes consecutively or whatever. So I feel like there's probably like some episodes that like we start and they're like, yeah, no, we don't care about football.
Yeah.
And then other ones where it's like, oh shoot. And they keep listening. And that's what happened, I think.
That is what happened. So speaking of viewing, it's been a couple weeks since we've talked about the things that we're streaming. In case you're not a regular of the show, usually toward the end of our episodes, we talk about some things that we've streamed, TV, film, music, and sometimes books, and just weigh in on it and give our 2 cents. So are you guys watching anything cool? Anything you'd recommend to the listeners?
The only thing for me is WWE. I've been back into that rotation. My kids saw their first WWE episode. Like I was watching it. There's a scenario where I'm watching it, and then Amy and the kids came in, and that's an odd situation. I don't remember why that happened, but Amy was like, "You know what? You think the kids can watch this?" And I'm like, "I don't know," but we did it anyway, and I think the kids were kind of into it. So that was cool. It's fun to jump into WWE. There's some unanswered questions that I have, some things that I had to go back and look up to find out, wait, what happened? Like Jey Uso is no longer part of the bloodline now, and I kind of had to realize what that's all about. And those kinds of things. And then I just kind of like looked up to find out who all of the current champions are and those kinds of things. But for the most part, like you can tune in about a year later, not a whole lot else has changed. So
well, on that tip, I just something that may have gotten me sprung right back into catching up with you is the documentary Wrestlers on Netflix. You did?
I haven't watched it, but
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this follows former WWE champ Al Snow from, I'm pretty sure from Lima, Ohio, if not strong connections to Lima, Ohio, near where Dillon and I are from, who is now the co-owner of OVW Wrestling, Ohio Valley Wrestling, down in Louisville, Kentucky, where he trains up. It's a feeder program for AEW and WWE, and he's keeping it alive. So a lot of these other regional professional wrestling venues, I guess, have all closed down except for OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling. So he's trying to keep it afloat, and this docuseries follows the highs and lows of that journey. Just they televise it every week and have for a consecutive, like, I forget how many hundreds or thousands of episodes. They've never missed a week. So even though the venue itself only seats a small number of people, it's televised every week. And some of the biggest names to come out of that are like John Cena and Brock Lesnar and like all these huge WWE superstars. So he's keeping it alive. He's sort of wrestling, no pun intended, with being a has-been himself, but still being relevant as a coach for these young up-and-coming pro wrestlers. It's very, very, very good. And I highly recommend it if you have ever been into wrestling or find any of that fascinating. Wrestlers on Netflix. Really good. Dylan, what are you watching, my mans?
We're back into the Christmas movie season, so I'm not going to necessarily chat about some of the regular stuff. But if you have Apple TV Plus and you're a fan of Ted Lasso, I would definitely check out Hannah Waddingham's special Home for Christmas. That's a really nice, really brief, I think it's like 40 minutes. Basically Ted Lasso reunion centered around Hannah Waddingham, who plays the owner in Ted Lasso. So that was really fun. Nice little Christmas special. And to get some of the bad Netflix stand-up out of my mind, I watched some good Netflix stand-up. Mike Birbiglia, The Old Man and the Pool on Netflix, was freaking hilarious. And I have to say, I don't know that I'd go so far as to say Brie is a stand-up fan. She has a few comedians that she likes, Sebastian, Nate Bargatze. That's about it. And I've tried to play Mike Birbiglia before because he's so funny and generally clean. And his delivery is so dry, but once you understand like kind of his style, I think he's so funny. And I've tried to play him before and it just hasn't landed. So I started this special the other day and she was in the room kind of not really watching the first little bit. And then if you broke it up into 4 quarters, it's like the first quarter was not paying attention. The second quarter was like kind of trying to like kind of watching it a little bit while playing on her phone. The third quarter was like acceptance. Like I'm allowed to laugh and it's okay because this is a new comic that I'm starting to like. And then by the end, it was like laughing. And so it was great to like watch that whole thing happen across one of the specials. But man, it is so good. So if you've not watched Mike Birbiglia, which he's such an interesting guy because of like his background. He has a disease that he sleepwalks, and then like there was a movie made about that, and then he's got all his stand-up, and so he's definitely gotten funnier the longer he's been around. And he even talked about how bad he was at stand-up early on. But that one is very, very funny. Definitely check that out. It's super good. So that's been most. I'm kind of behind on movies. I need to get caught up on some movie. But a couple things that folks should check out.
Dylan, did you and Bree watch Pete Holmes, the new one, Pete Holmes' new one on Netflix?
No,
I think you guys might like him because his temperament and sort of like vibe is very similar to Mike Birbiglia. And he's generally pretty clean. He's got like a religious background as well. So he makes some jokes about that. It's called I Am Not For Everyone. Check that one out.
Okay. Yeah, and we're gonna go see Nate Bargatze in person in January. Speaking of Nationwide Arena, he's gonna be in Columbus. So very excited for that. I know when we went to see Sebastian at the Palace or the Ohio Theater, I think it was the Palace Theater. That was right after his special came out, and I would say 90% of that night was not stuff from his special of the same name. So I don't know. It doesn't really matter. If Nate Bargatze does basically his most recent special, it's going to be funny. And if he does all new material, I'm super excited. So that'll be another one we'll get to enjoy here soon, and we'll get to talk about a little bit.
Well, just two more for me. The first one I'll be quick about. I had talked a handful of episodes back about watching the 3-part documentary on Arnold Schwarzenegger, athlete actor American. That was good. True to form, him and Sylvester Stallone, have always competed. Sly has a new documentary out on Netflix called Sly. It's not 3 parts, it's just one film. I thought it was very good. I learned a lot about Sly that I didn't know. And you realize how intentional he was about the choices he's made in acting. He did a lot of his own writing and was very thoughtful about the characters he portrayed. All of his films were definitely not winners, but you got to recognize that the guy's been in 3 major franchises based on characters that he's in part created or solely created, with Rocky, Rambo, and the Expendables. So the guy knows something about creating things that people watch, and I thought it was really good. And then lastly, Squid Game was a big deal when it came out. A lot of people love that series. There's a competition show called Squid Game The Challenge, and man, it was so good. I was there for all of it. I highly recommended it. If you liked Squid Game, chances are if you liked Squid Game, you already knew about this show and were already on top of its release date and Netflix. But it is so bingeable. It is so well done. Kendall, you watched Squid Game?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Dylan, you did not. The sets, Kendall, are at the same quality as the show. They make them wear identical costumes as the contestants. All of the guards are wearing the exact same, like,
yeah,
the music,
Mr. Beast quality.
The music, the look, it feels like you're watching the show, but you're watching a reality competition show to see who wins $4,560,000, and every contestant that drops $10,000 more goes in the bucket starting from the beginning, right? And they start with red light, green light. They do a bunch of the games from the show. There's obviously some that they can't do, so they come up with alternatives. But man, it's good. You pick your favorites, and you're kind of rooting for this guy and who's going to backstab who, and it's very, very, very good.
Dude, was it? Did it have any reality show ishness to it? Like, were they weren't all like staying in barracks or anything, were they? Or were they?
They were.
They were. So it was Squid Game without the diet.
It's Squid Game. It's Squid Game. They have a limited diet. The only part where I got a little suspicious was it felt like a few people were plants or were overacting some of the drama.
Okay.
But best I can tell, after reading a bunch of articles and interviews with the creators, they're like, nope, there were no, I mean, they're not going to maybe say, but like, there were no like actors portraying Stacy from Cleveland. Like, Stacy from Cleveland was Stacy from Cleveland, best I can tell. So, but yeah,
did they feed Stacy from Cleveland anything?
Yeah. I mean, was it more like, you mean literally or figuratively?
Well, figuratively.
Yeah, I don't know if it was like, hey, can you play up this part a little bit? Hey, can you be a little backstabby here? You have to figure some of that's going on, but not to the degree that it felt like I wanted to not watch. Like, I was there for all of it. Then I figured, even if some people are plants, the rest of the people aren't, and their reactions to that person will be authentic. So that part I'm going to buy into.
Sure.
And this could easily go multiple seasons. They end it very much like the show, where like another round of people are getting business cards and being picked up by a van. And so it's like, and then they say like squidgamecasting.com, like, go now. Just like at the end of American Idol season, they're like, tryouts are coming to your town. It was like, hey, go to this website if you want to be on the next season of Squid Game. It was very, very good. So that's what's up.
They should just They should just drop a recruitment bus off at Bachelor in Paradise and let all those people walk right onto the bus from there, and then they've got their cast for the next season.
Oh, that's awesome.
That'd be wonderful. Take the offshoots from all of those who failed at the current reality TV shows.
Yeah,
Be
put
like,
them
okay,
up.
you have to fight for this one. It's part of your contract.
I thought that's what Dancing with the Stars was. Sorry, I had to. Those aren't reality show contestants. They're
boy.
failed celebrities. Okay. So anyway, shout out to Ludacris. Love you. This has been From the Middle. We always love catching up with you and hanging out. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to check out artiusman.com. That's ARTIUSMAN.com. Fill your cart with all those amazing men's beard grooming products and use promo code The Middle at checkout to get 25% off of that entire order. You will be glad you did. Get your orders in before Christmas for the man in your life. And thank you, Artius Man, for the partnership. And we'll catch you guys next week.